one of the concepts that I'm probably most insecure is the word I'll use about, and by that I mean like when I tell other people, I literally get insecure, like they're gonna think I'm fucking crazy or, talking nonsense. Is this whole idea that we shouldn't trust our own minds so much. And as soon as you say that, at least for me, right, it has like this connotation of like, wait, where are we going here? Not trusting our own minds. Like, what is it, like conspiracy theory? Is it like, um, that nothing's real? You can't trust anything. Like, I can't trust my own mind. What can I trust? And I get that, right? But it's so tricky because it's to me it's so important. It's such an important concept to appreciate and to acknowledge, and the impact and the benefit of doing it seems so high. So I struggle with it because like how do you convey that to people? And the reason why I think it's so impactful, I think it's so important, is I talk a lot about the subconscious. The way I would describe it is like the subconscious is constantly hunting for reasons, ways, approaches, cognitive outs, as I often talk about them, to get what it wants, right? And what I believe it wants is kind of that more in the moment, immediate, short term, maximization of pleasure versus discomfort, right? It wants what it wants in the moment. It's very short sighted, but it's very focused on that. And it's constantly hunting for ways to make that happen, right? Because and this is where it starts. This is where the insecurity gets in, because it starts to talk about like, what do you mean? Are there two entities in your own mind? And like, no, probably literally not, but figuratively, kind of, because it's almost as if the subconscious is trying to push and direct and influence us in a weird way to do certain things. And again, the way it does that is it's hunting for these things. So when we get ideas in our mind, when we have thoughts, when we're thinking about a topic, when we're in a conversation with somebody, when we're debating something, whatever it is, naturally ideas start popping into our heads. And that's where I think we're often far too trusting. We trust that those ideas come from a place that is either legitimate or logical or rational or trustworthy in some way. And it's not that they're not, right? That's kind of the key piece of this. It's not that you can't trust your mind at all and everything you think is not real and you should, what is real? Everything's crazy. It's not that. It's just sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Our minds are imperfect, right? The way we formulate views and beliefs and all that is based on a whole host of different variables and factors. Some internal to us, some external influences, all that type of stuff. And the reason why I so often talk about like getting to the root of things or first principles is that's what I want. I want clarity on where is this actually coming from. And if you don't have it, well, then you don't know. It's possible you could trust it, but it's possible you can. So for most of us, I think the best we can do, or what we should strive for, is just that acknowledgement of, hey, I don't know for sure. I'm not going to act as if this view or this belief or this thought I have in my head is definitely legitimate and credible. I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to be open to the idea that maybe this is coming from a place that isn't as useful or beneficial to me as I think it is. And I think that's where people get into trouble a lot of the time, is they just don't have that acknowledgement. You don't even have to go as far to say, I'm going to figure out, is it legitimate or is it not? I'm not going to go to the root of it, right, to the first principle and see what's actually behind it. You don't necessarily have to do that. I personally believe it's beneficial, and you should on topics or things that are important. But if you don't want to, for whatever reason, you don't have the energy, whatever it might be, I think just having that acknowledgement, just knowing that there's a chance, entertain the possibility, I think that goes so far. Because what happens otherwise is, right, what I think is oftentimes, or it can happen, is your subconscious is hunting. It's constantly hunting for things. And it'll find things. And then that just almost acts as fuel that continues to feed possibly like a false belief or an irrational belief that you don't recognize. And it's all happening in our own mind. So if you were going to try and think about it, right? Am I being irrational here, whatever? You're being fed in your own mind this fuel, which it keeps telling you, no, you're right, you're good, keep going. It's all fine. It's only once you make that acknowledgement of like, oh, even the source of that, I shouldn't fully trust. I should question it a little bit more. Can you start to cut off that fuel supply? Can you start to cut that off and start to get some clarity on what's actually happening? And I come back to the point, right, as I explain this, that insecurity point, it sounds kind of fucking crazy. It sounds like we're all nuts. It sounds like our minds there's multiple voices in our head and all that type of stuff. And it's not that, right? If you look at it very simply, it's just there's a whole bunch of different circuits and sections and segments of the brain which are piecing things together and trying to figure things out that ultimately formulate into our thoughts. And it's just an appreciation of that it's imperfect. And we're guessing a lot of the time. We're making assumptions. Our mind is pulling us in a lot of different directions. Some of it based on like evolutionary based value drivers that we're just programmed to go after, food and shelter and safety and that type of thing. Some of it based on intentional external things that are meant to influence us in some ways. All sorts of different stuff. So just appreciate that. Let that be somewhat liberating, right? The idea that there's so many things going on in our minds, some of them legitimate, some of them not, and just allow that freedom of doubt and uncertainty to guide you, and not let you get to a place where you think, I think it, I believe it, therefore there's no doubt in my mind it's true. And when I think about it more, it only reinforces it and it feels more true. And I'm thinking of more reasons why it's true. Cut off that fuel supply. Entertain the idea that maybe you shouldn't trust it. I think it'll go a long way.